Well, hello and welcome to episode 32. Can you believe it? Of the Your Way podcast. So I am Louise, your host. Welcome to those of you who are new, returning. Welcome to you as well. And so today I thought we'd have a little bit of story time. I'm going to talk about my awakening and what that word means to me. Like, what does it mean to awaken, and why the hell am I talking about it? So, I had a month of social media in August, and around the start of the month, one of my first coaches, a fabulous lady called Danielle North, sent me a copy of her newest book, which is a 28-day workbook, all designed to help you find your purpose. And in true Louise fashion, I skim read it. It was meant to be like one a day, like you do one exercise a day to help you reveal your purpose. Not my thing. So I skim read it, worked through it, thought about it, didn't spend ages and ages on it. But the point of the book was to get to a place where you could define your purpose in 2 words. So Danielle's purpose is to heal. Okay. So I do my speed version through this workbook. And yes, I might do it properly at some point. And the words that came to me really strongly and really powerfully were to awaken. Okay. And I recognize that for me and my journey, that looks like awakening myself and then also supporting others on their own individual path of awakening, right? Now, I think when we first hear the word awaken, okay, or awakening, the first thing that often comes to people's minds is some kind of spiritual awakening. And whilst that may be part of a person's awakening, I actually think that lots and lots of different facets go into the process of waking up. Okay. And so I wanted to explore some of those today and then share some of my story in the process. And when I share my stories, the invitation is, yeah, I mean, be entertained by what I'm saying, by all means. But the invitation is always that I'm sharing so that you can kind of relate and pull out your own experiences from what I am saying. Sometimes it's easier for us to take a step away from our own stuff, but then see it through the story of someone else. So that is very much my invitation. So if I go way back to being a kid, um, I think the first attempt to awaken, open my eyes, live my life was in that kind of teen rebellious phase. And that didn't go so well because I learned that Rebel Louise got annihilated. She got annihilated and it wasn't fun. And sometimes she got annihilated in front of teachers, and sometimes she got physically annihilated, and sometimes she got emotionally and verbally annihilated. And so the awakening was very much conquest. And I became the archetypal good girl. And I got my exam results and I went off to university and I got my fancy law degree. And although I did not know it at the time, could not have been less awake. I was the zombie. I was the hamster on the treadmill, going through my days completely disconnected from myself and my life, but completely unaware of it because I was just so busy going through the motions and never really questioning whether or not I was doing what I wanted to do, whether it was my life's path, whether or not it made me happy. Like I had my clear career trajectory. I was working for big companies. They were paying me well. Like on paper, it all looked great. I just believed that my natural default state was that I was a bit anxious. I was kind of stressy. I didn't sleep too well. Um, and I just went through the motions, incredibly intolerant of other people that weren't quite so A-type as me, weren't quite so organized. And I just thought it was their problem because they weren't as good as I was. Okay. So we do this for about a decade after I qualify as a lawyer. And the stress levels get worse, and the anxiety gets worse, and the health symptoms get worse, and the sleep gets worse. And then it culminates in the burnout of 2018. And whilst we could see that as the awakening, that was really like the rude awakening. That was the rude awakening of like, hey, love, you aren't listening. So we've sent you all these other signs, and now we're gonna throw you this great big one. So I qualify in 2009, right? If I backtrack a little bit. And I knew by like 2011, 2012, this law thing wasn't for me. The team I was in, no. Um, and so I applied for the jobs and I had interviews at other places, but to do the same stuff, right? So I start getting these little waves of my awakening. And for me, an awakening is like, how do we get back? How do we open our eyes to the truths of our experience and who we are and who we're here to be, right? However that manifests. You might just awaken around career or relationships or life. There might be a spiritual awakening. I'm sure we'll get to all of it today because, as per, I have no notes and I've got a clear afternoon. So buckle up. Um, so I'm applying for these jobs as this like these nudges of like, well, what you're doing right now isn't quite right. And then like step two of the awakening comes in about 2013. So I didn't get the jobs, stayed where I was. And I was really into the gym at that time. I'm like not advocating this, by the way, before I say it, 6 days a week in the gym, didn't eat properly, terrified of fat, didn't eat any fat. I mean, I now understand this was indeed the recipe for burnout. Don't sleep, exercise too much, don't nourish your body with any fat. Burnout. Don't recommend. Um, but I'm really into the gym. I'm really into nutrition. I'm still vaguely into the gym and I'm still really into nutrition, but this was like the bodybuilding bro age. That was Louise's bodybuilding like era. Um, and I started helping a lady in the gym to put together ebooks for like exercise ebooks and nutrition ebooks. And we actually sold quite a few. And I got permission from my employer to do this, like on the side of work. But I mean, I think it's long enough past now that they're not going to sue me. I was kind of when I was quiet at work, I was doing this other stuff. It took a long time. And I also spent a little bit of time being a health coach. So I still have a Gmail email that I'm not actually going to say it out loud because I'll get spammed with all kinds of shit. But I have a Gmail email still that is from that time. So it's got the word coach in it, but it was when I was being like a health coach back in 2013. My first great love, exercise and nutrition. No, I am not a fitness coach, but come and ask me any questions. I have the knowledge. So that happened and I loved it. And it was a real, real passion of mine. Um, and it opened up my eyes to like, oh, there's other stuff that I'm interested in. There's other stuff, there's other directions that I'm pulled in. And it was just a bit more appealing for me than VAT law. So VAT, for those of you abroad, is sales tax. So when I was a tax lawyer, I worked with very, very large companies who didn't really want to pay very much tax on the goods or services that they sold. And when they got into a fight with the tax authorities about what the correct amount of tax was that they should pay, I got involved to help them fight what they thought the correct tax treatment was. I know. Can you even imagine that? I didn't love doing that, but that was my job for 10 years. Um, and so that gave me a glimpse into stuff that I could do that I felt really lit up by. And then the next stage of the awakening. So at this point, I'm getting all of these glimmers of like, team's not quite right for me, not quite enjoying this work. Oh, there's other stuff that I quite do enjoy. But you sort of get sucked back in, don't you? Because you're like, oh, but I've got my fancy paycheck and I've got my pension and I've got my medical benefits. And like, what can I do if I'm not a lawyer? And my area of law is quite niche. It was litigation. So it was VAT litigation. So a very specific kind of tax. and litigation, so like contentious tax. So it wasn't like I was a corporate lawyer and I could go in-house and work for something else. It was like it was pretty specialist, not in a good way. Um, but I'm starting to get these glimmers of like, this isn't for me, but I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling trapped. I'm like, oh, there's no way out. Now, at the time, I worked for a company called KPMG, great big professional services company. If you're in that sphere, you're going to have heard of them. And I discovered a little thing called a secondment. Yes, I did. And I went into their internal team, so not client facing. And I spent a year being the UK mobility lead, which basically looked like a massive project management role to put a process in place that allowed people to move between departments within that organization without them leaving. Because what happened was people went into audit, they trained as auditors, and then they really wanted to go and do deals and exciting stuff, and they left at the place and they left and went somewhere else. And the point of this was rather than losing everyone from audit to somewhere else, could we move them into the deals advisory team or the management consulting team within KPMG? So it was putting in place this whole like secondment system, swap system to kind of give people the option of the try before you buy. But there was an awful lot of negotiating with senior stakeholders. Like you had to get the heads of audit, tax, advisory to agree that this could go down. You had to like navigate all of that. And that was my role. And I sat within the resourcing function. And then as part of that as well, there were 8 resourcing grads that came in. And I was put in charge of the training for these 8 resourcing grads because it turns out it did not take me, the year project was not a year project for me because I was this super efficient lawyer, right? So, we were done in about 3 months. So then I took on the role of looking after the resourcing grads. And then KPMG had a big internal restructure where they just going to pull that bit of hair down. Where they changed the lines of service basically. So rather than it being tax audit advisory, they changed it into market sectors. Probably more information than you need to know. So I was then also involved in the whole reorganization and what that would look like and how people would be moved and how they would do that from a cost center perspective. So I got incredible project management tools, negotiation tools, speaking tools, like going to meetings with very, very senior people and kind of negotiating and working through that. And then also people skills and training skills, because I put together and delivered the training for these grads. And then I was responsible for these grads. And throughout all of that, it gave me this additional confidence of I've got all of these other skill sets. Maybe there is a life for me outside of VAT litigation. And this made me very, very excited. And I was pretty comfortable at this point that there was no going back. I was done being a lawyer. I mean, God, Louise the lawyer, it sounded fancy, didn't it? Everyone got to be happy about, oh, how well she'd done. But it was not my thing. Um, and yet, then one day I'm at lunch and I have a message from a guy that I used to work with who's at PwC, so PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the other of these big companies. And the long story short, he wanted me, once we had a chat, he wanted me to go and combine all these skill sets. So the people skills, the project management skills, the team skills, the negotiation skills, and the tax and legal skills to go and help him run the equivalent of the team that I wasn't in at KPMG because I was on secondment at PwC. And it bought lots of stuff for me because, like, in my mind at the time, PwC was better than KPMG and someone wanted me. And did I need to give it one more go? And blah, 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 blah. So I go to PwC. And I'm just going to say it was great and it was a lot and there was burnout. And then I left and then I never went back. Right. But all of these little pieces came together with these little awakenings, these little nudges, these little insights into who I was, what lit me up, my personality, what was joyful for me, what made me come alive? And what made me come alive, I mean, those grads, I'm still connected with some of them on Instagram now. Like they just gave me life. I mean, I was what? Well, how old was I? Like 30 or something. They came in from university, 22, like young, full of life. And I was married and bogged down by too many years as a dance lawyer at this point. Um, and it was great and I loved it. And the thing that I so loved was helping these people to thrive, helping these people to get what they wanted. So I was getting all of these glimmers. Then burnout happens. And now I kind of now see burnout really as the start of the Great Awakening. As I said before, and this did only come to me today, maybe it was the start of the rude awakening. Like, we've tried to give you all these nudges, love. Like, you knew law wasn't right. We sent you the secondment. That was great. Your ego meant you went back. Like, you're not really paying attention. You're not taking care of yourself. This is not what you are here to do. So I leave law from a place of desperation, really. I'm like, well, what else can I do? I'm like, well, I like working with people. My sister said, well, have you thought about coaching? Never heard of it. Never heard of it. But I went off, I did my research, I found out about it, and I was like, actually, this could be my thing. I can only be a career coach. I'll be a career coach. I'll help people with their goals because I would never want to be a life coach. Oh, hell no. And then there was all this stuff around like life coaching being a bit like wishy-washy, and I was a serious lawyer. So it's all like, oh, I'm a professional coach. I'm a professional coach, but make sure everybody knows I was a lawyer. Um, and therein goes the path, right? I start doing my own work, and it becomes very clear after many attempts by my first coach of recommending these trauma books to me. And I'm like, why is she recommending trauma books to me? I haven't got any trauma. I've never been sexually assaulted. I've not been in a war. I've not had any bad car accidents because that's what I thought trauma was. Um, the penny drops at some point. I'm like, oh, there's a fuck ton of childhood trauma there that's not been looked at. There's some dysfunctional patterns here. Oh, it's not just anxiety. Oh, I'm not just a bad sleeper. Oh, this perfectionism and people pleasing that I've been doing for years, that's not just my default. It's actually my survival pattern and how I've changed. And so there's all of this awakening, some of which is uncomfortable, right? Because it's really easy to be like, well, my problem is my toxic job and my husband's a little bit challenging. When you get to a place of like, oh, no, it's me. It's me. The problem is me. And my patterns and my stuff and the things that have happened to me in the past that I haven't dealt with that now means that I behave in this way. Um, I was not, I'm not saying I'm an easy wife now, but I was not an easy wife back then. Um, very demanding, very particular, because everything had to be just so. And when you are stuck in perfectionism and everything has to be just so, you put those conditions on everybody else. I remember Nat used to say to me, that's my husband, for those of you that don't know, he was like, it's like your expectations are too high. And I'd be like, your standards are too low. Anyway, we live and we learn, right? We live and we learn. Um, so this awakening starts, and I start this process, or I continue this process of returning to me. Who am I? What do I want? What do I love? How do I want to spend my time? I'm signed off work. I use the employee assistance scheme. All good companies have them. I get my 6 free sessions with a therapist. And she's like, well, you've been given permission to have this time off by a doctor. So you can spend the time doing the things that you find fun. And I wanted to be like, fuck you, lady. I haven't got a clue what I find fun. I have spent the last 10 years just trying to survive. Like, do you know how many hours I've been working? Do you know how many hours I haven't been sleeping? Do you know how much I just try and recover on the weekend and I do it all again the next week? And you're telling me to go do the things that I find fun? Right, so there's this whole process. I don't know what I find fun. I don't know who I am. And then it's confronting because at this time I was 33, 39 now, big 40 next year. I was 33. I was like, I don't know who I am. I literally don't know who I am. I sure as shit didn't know who I am if I wasn't a lawyer. If I couldn't hide behind, well, I'm a fancy lawyer at PwC, don't you know? Well, what was left? Right? And so all of this unraveling starts to happen. Like, can I let go of Louise the lawyer? Can I look at Louise with the childhood trauma? Can I work through these patterns? Can I face the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the A-type stuff, the needing to prove, the trying to earn my right to exist? Can I walk through all of this so that I can get to a space of, well, this is who I am, take it or leave it? I have found my voice. I can use my voice. This is what I want. This is my purpose. I started off this episode being like, yeah, my purpose is to awaken myself and others. If you said that to me 6 years ago, I'm recording this on the 18th of September, and it's so my last day at PwC, I think, was the 19th of September 2018. So it's basically 6 years today. If you'd said to me 6 years ago, Louise, your purpose is to awaken, I wouldn't have told you to fuck off because I would have been in the freeze response and I wouldn't have been able to do that because I would have people pleased you. Um, but it would have been very, very far removed from where I am right now, right? And so all of this to say that when I talk about awakening, it's just bringing you back to you. Who are you? What do you want? What are you here to do? What is your joy? What is your happiness? Because I don't think any of us are meant to live a life where we feel miserable and stressed and tired and overwhelmed, no matter how much we earn. It's such a fallacy, isn't it? Like, I need to earn all this money in order to feel secure. You're never feeling secure if you don't feel secure. Like, more money is not going to make you feel secure, and you can keep chasing it, crack on, but it's not going to tick the box for you, right? So the awakening happens and the awakening happens. And then this feels like it's gone on a while now. So I'll maybe stop. And then maybe next week we'll do like, or next fortnight, because we only do this every other week now. I will talk about what my more kind of unorthodox spiritual awakening has looked like. But your takeaways from today are like, can you follow the nudges of your life that are following you on a path that feels like you? You know, it's 10 to 3 in the afternoon. I had a call with my coach first thing. I've been on a 3 hour walk with a friend, absolutely amazing, put the will to rights, came back, had a call at 1 o'clock. I've just had a little bit of something to eat. I'm recording a podcast now. Might record another one straight after, might not, we will see. And then that's my day today. I've got 4 calls with clients tomorrow. So that's a busier day. Friday, I don't work. I don't work on a Friday. Right? I've created a life and I love the work that I do. And the stuff that I'm crap at, I have an assistant and he does it. And I have a lovely lady who helps me do the podcast. So I record it and then she magically makes it all happen. Right. And I have created all of this by following my nudges and allowing myself to awaken, even when it felt uncomfortable. Didn't feel comfortable to walk away from a legal career. Didn't feel comfortable when the therapist in October 2018 says, sounds quite dysfunctional, your family, for me to peel the lid off that. Didn't feel comfortable when you start your own business and realize, entrepreneurs, you know, that all of your shit's going to come up when you start your own business because all of a sudden it's you putting yourself out there and that is going to throw it all up, right? But when we awaken, when we open our eyes to the truth, when we keep following our path, that is when you get to joy. That is when you get to, oh, I love my life. Oh, I've curated my life. Life doesn't just happen to you, you choose it. So if you're in a job that you hate and you're telling yourself that you have to stay in it because you hate your job, you're still choosing it. Even if it feels like you don't have a choice, you do. So I will leave it there. Hope this has given you some food for thought, and maybe you can look back on your life and where are the nudges trying to follow you on your awakening. And if you're in a place where you're like, oh God, what Louise said about I don't know what I find fun and I don't know who I am and I don't know what I want to do. If that's where you are right now, come and give me a shout. Like, let's have a chat about it. Drop me a message, send me an email, whatever. Because let me point you in the right direction of your next steps because you do not need to stay stuck. And life is too short and too precious for you to keep putting this stuff off and to keep saying, I'm stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. It's time to get unstuck. So come and find me. Let's have a chat. I don't mean let me sell stuff to you. I mean, come and have a chat and we'll see where it goes. All right, take care. I'll see you next time. Bye. Before you go, I so hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, I'd like to ask you a favor, please, because the way that this podcast grows and the way that more people get to benefit from these materials is that more people find it. And that means that subscribes and likes and shares are so, so important to this space. So, my ask of you, if you got value from the podcast today, is give it a review, give it a like, share it with a friend, and make sure that you are subscribed. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you being here. And I look forward to continuing to support you to do life, business, relationships, and all of it your way.